Tim McKibbin, CEO of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales, has been popping into the studio to chat about some of the things that you need to know as a property buyer. This week, Tim takes a look at renovations. It seems that for whatever reason, people are now choosing to renovate more often than they ever have before. Why do you think that is?
There certainly isn't ever an example where it is. We can, I guess, have a generalisation right across the entire market and say to everybody that renovation is a great idea. It really does depend on your own personal circumstances. It depends on who you are. But I think there is some attraction for renovating. Certainly, if you are looking to go from one property to the next, then you have to consider stamp duty. Obviously, that's one factor. But having said that, I guess if you're looking to buy a property as a first home buyer and you're saying, well, look, I'll buy something that Renovator's Delight, as they're sometimes marketed as, you really need to assess yourself for whether or not you actually have the skills. There's no accident that it takes 4 years to become a tradesman.
Do you think that all of these new renovation shows that we see all over the television are behind people's desire, or at least their thoughts that they can possibly become a renovator?
Well, probably not my area of expertise to analyse what effect that's having on the market, but I'd have to accept your proposition has got to have some impact. You do watch these shows and you see somebody pick up a hammer and a sword and then they cut to the next scene and then, wouldn't you know it, there's a wall that's appeared overnight. So certainly I think you need to view these things in that light, that you do need to understand whether or not you actually have those skills. And I think if you don't have them and you go down this path, it won't be a romantic exercise. It actually can be a very costly one. So renovation is good if you have those skills and I guess you understand exactly what it is you're getting into.
Okay, so let's start by talking first of all about the benefits of becoming a renovator and renovating your own home. What are they?
If you renovate, you can create the home that you want rather than marching into a home that is been designed and built by somebody else. So you do get that flexibility about it. But it's a very, very difficult question. As we said at the outset, it talks about whether or not you actually have the skills and each property and each particular person's circumstances.
Okay, so what are the drawbacks then, and what are some of the traps that people can fall into when they renovate?
I think the first drawback is that you get some sort of romantic notion that it's going to be fun and we'll all have a great time doing it. The reality of it is it is very hard work. I've actually built a home and I've also assisted people with renovations in my life, and I don't think there is that sort of image that is portrayed, I think, on television shows about the sort of fun you're going to have. I think it is a long, hard slog, and the mistakes you make typically can be expensive. There's nothing wrong with renovation if you're going into it with the attitude that I've got the skills to do it, or I've got the skills to manage the process, and that in itself can be quite an exercise. If you're not used to, I guess, dealing with builders and managing that process, that can also be difficult. Every mistake you make is potentially going to be expensive. So go into it with your eyes open, understand what the process is. You may very well be better off, I guess, buying the home that you want yourself.
Tim, typically I find that one of the problems is that people overestimate how much value a renovation is going to add to their home, and by the time you account for all of the time you've spent plus the money you've spent and then those mistakes that you might make, people really add very much more than the cost of the renovation to their home.
Yeah, again, a generalisation is always difficult, but I have to accept what you're saying, that the amount of time you can put into the amount of materials that can go into a home, and certainly if you're not counting for your own time in all of this, and if you don't add that into it, then certainly that factor in itself may not be realised in the final sale. And you always there's an opportunity cost in this too, I think, Margaret. If you say to yourself, could I be working somewhere that's actually earning money rather than spending the weekend renovating, and you have to factor that in as well. So generalisations are difficult, but I think as an overarching comment in relation to renovations generally, that you need to go into it with the attitude that it may not be as easy or as simple as sometimes it's portrayed on the television.
Tim, do you think that it's fair to say that in some cases people who may not have great skills in renovating do bad renovations that actually takes away value from their home?
Well, if I can rephrase your question, do I think that somebody who is not an expert will not do as good a job as an expert? Then that's certainly true in all facets of our life. So again, be very mindful that that somebody who does a renovation who is not qualified in that area is probably not going to do as good a job as a professional, somebody that's had a 4-year trade that goes in and actually understands exactly what has to be done. And these people are efficient, they use the right materials, they understand the process, and they're certainly going to do a lot better job than amateurs. But, you know, small renovations, you can go and get that sort of advice from your local hardware store, and people can enjoy that. But I think if you're going into it thinking that it's going to be, when you're doing it, taking a large renovation on, you need to go into that with your eyes open, understanding your limitations, understanding that you need to manage other service providers, other builders, and that can be quite a difficult task.
What should a renovator do before they get started?
Well, I suppose if you're going to outsource some of that work to a builder, typically, then you'd be saying to that particular builder, I need to lock down the costs. So you go into it with an understanding what the costs are going to be, rather than having the thing blow out and find yourself in a position where you can't fund it. Also, if it is your own home and you are looking to, I guess, add value to the home as opposed to build something for your actual enjoyment of the facility, in which case you may not care about the cost. But if you're looking to add value to the property, then I guess one of the things you could do is actually speak to a local real estate agent and say, well, what are the sort of things that I'd be doing to my property where the renovation will add value to the property?
And I guess what a lot of people think is that if they make their house look beautiful, that it's going to add value, but that rarely does any more than add saleability. You've really got to add floor space to add actual value to a house.
Yeah, I think again, it's difficult when you talk about trying to get into the head of what a potential purchaser would look to buy in your property, and that's always a bit of a challenge. But certainly, the more floor space you have in the property, the bigger the home is. Typically, that is going to be more attractive. People like space. We like comfort.
So, Tim, how can a renovator get a pretty good idea of what the potential future value of the finished product's going to be?
You can go and speak to your local real estate agent. Now, the real estate agent's dealing in property all day, every day, so they're the expert in that area. So if you were to say to the real estate agent, I'm thinking about or contemplating doing this particular renovation, and that will add these features to this property, in your estimate, what would be the potential additional value that would create to my property if I was to do that? So armed with that information, you can then say to yourself, well, this is what it will be worth potentially if I do this, and these are my costs. So again, with that information at hand, you can then make something of an informed decision.
Where can a renovator go for help?
Well, if it was me, Margaret, I think what I'd be doing is going online. The whole world lives there these days. Master Builders Association would be one of the places I think I'd go along and have a look at it. And certainly there's a variety of other web-based tools where I think renovators can school themselves up. But I think it's really good advice that you're offering is actually to go on and do your research rather than diving into your hammer and nails too early. Do your research and you'll understand more about the process you're taking on.